I want to talk a little bit about the homework from last week. Okay, I want to highlight a couple of things that several students got wrong. So we'll start with the data source. So I want to create a new data source for Diamond. Okay, select Advanced Metadata Advisor. Okay, now here you have to pay attention to the role and the level. And usually when you use Advanced Metadata Advisor, the levels will usually be okay. But you should not simply accept and move on. You need to verify. So for example here, the number NO is simply the number of the row or row number. So row number is not a predictor variable. So that the role for that has to be changed to ID. So then NO, the number, will not be used as a predictor. Otherwise, SAS will simply use it as a predictor and it will give you wrong answers. So that's one thing. And then you must select the proper role for target. Okay? The variable that is target, its role should be set to target. Otherwise, it will be treated as an input. So, like especially in this assignment, we are trying to generate principal component analysis, and in principal components, you should only use the predictors. You should not use target. Now, if you don't change this from input to target, then that will be considered as an input variable, and it will be used to compute the principal components. So that has to be changed. Now, there is one thing that you may consider here, the depth in mm and depth. Actually, if you look at the description of what depth is from the Excel file, you will see that it is a kind of a combination of three different measures: the depth, length, and the width. So this is calculated based on these three. So there will be a high correlation between that and these three variables. So you could reject this variable outright, or you may keep it for the purpose of principal components. Principal component will get rid of any correlations that will be there within the predictors and generate principal components that are completely uncorrelated. So for the purpose of principal components, it's okay. You can leave that as input. But for regression, you should reject depth because it is highly correlated with these three variables. So I'm going to leave it as input for the moment. Okay. So after having made these changes, then you run the principal components. The first problem is, okay, again when you look at, okay, so these are the variables that you want to select for the first problem: depth in mm, length in mm. You put no for all the others, and then you need to make sure that this is set to correlation, and then you'll have to just run and copy paste the principal components and do the rest of problem one. Most students got that part right. So now we'll move on to problem number 2. And very quickly, problem number 2, the important thing is, again, the problem, well, the question arises: what happens to these nominal variables? Should you reject the nominal variables or not? But principal components can only take numerical variables as input. It cannot take nominal or ordinal variables. But what SAS will do is, wherever there is a nominal variable or ordinal variable, SAS will automatically generate dummy variables which are numeric and use those dummy variables in the computations. So we can just leave these as default, not make any change at all, and then run the analysis. Okay, so you can do correlation, covariance, and another thing is you have to rename. I see that a lot of students are not renaming the nodes. Okay, from next time onwards, I'll start deducting points for this. You have to rename the nodes to be reflective of what that is. And I've talked about this in one of the earlier videos too. And then you do the rest of problem number 2.